how blind faith in others destroys freedom, dulls your instinct, and why ancient thinkers warned against it. Let me hit you with something most people are too afraid to admit, even to themselves. Trust is not inherently virtuous. It's not always noble. In fact, when unexamined, trust becomes the easiest path to destruction. People are taught to trust as a default setting. Trust your parents, your teachers, your leaders, your friends. But here's the philosophical paradox. Trust, when given carelessly or out of fear, is not strength. It's surrender. It's handing over your mind, your decisions, your reality to someone else's hands and hoping they don't break it. But history, psychology, and ancient wisdom all scream the same warning. They usually do. The world is full of people who seek your trust not to cherish it, but to exploit it. And by the time you realize it, the damage is done. Now let's frame this philosophically. What is trust? At its core, trust is a belief that someone will act in your best interest, that they are who they claim to be, that their words align with truth. But here's the dilemma. Humans are complex, motivations are hidden, and reality is rarely what it seems. Trust then becomes a risk. Every time you trust, you gamble not with money, but with vulnerability, with time, with your life's direction. And when you trust blindly, without discernment, without observation, you're not brave, you're asleep. You're easy prey. The ancient philosopher Heraclitus warned, character is destiny. But trusting someone without truly knowing their character is like building your home on sand. So the question becomes, how well do you actually know the people you trust?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Let's dive deeper. There's a psychological mechanism called projection. We often project our values onto others. We assume they think, feel, act like us. If we're honest, we believe they are too. But this is the fatal error. Trust based on projection is not trust, it's illusion. And dangerous people thrive in illusion. They manipulate your projections, mirror your values, play the part you want to see. And once they have your trust, the manipulation begins not suddenly but subtly. And a request here, a broken promise there, a shift in dynamic you can't quite explain, until one day you wake up in a life you didn't choose because your trust chose for you. Let me ask you something deeply uncomfortable. Has trusting someone ever led you to betray yourself? Think about it. Maybe you stayed in a toxic relationship because you trusted they'd change. Maybe you followed advice that led to regret because you trusted their wisdom more than your intuition. Maybe you silenced your own voice because someone you trusted disapproved. These are not just bad choices. These are philosophical violations of your autonomy, your reason, your soul. And the danger. Trust doesn't just expose you to others. It buries you within yourself. It makes you second-guess your instincts. You start asking, am I overreacting? Am I wrong? That's the sign. When trust becomes a prison of self-doubt, it's no longer trust, it's submission. Let's move to ancient wisdom. Lao Tzu, the Taoist master, said, "He who does not trust enough will not be trusted." But here's what most people miss. He wasn't promoting blind trust, he was warning against control. When you trust yourself deeply, you don't need to control others. But when you trust others more than you trust yourself, you lose your center. That's the real danger. Trust is only safe when it flows from self-trust. Without that, trust becomes dependency. You give others the power to shape your reality, and they will often for their benefit, not yours. Let's raise the stakes. In every society, systems are built on trust: governments, religions, institutions. And when that trust is abused, it leads to collapse. Why? Because the masses believe what they are told, not because it's true, but because it's comfortable. Trust in authority, trust in experts, it feels safe. But safety is not truth. The Stoics warned, question everything. And yet, people fear questioning because questioning leads to uncertainty, and trust promises certainty. But that's the lie. Trust, given too easily, replaces thought. It kills critical thinking. You stop asking, is this right? And start obeying, believing, following. That's how empires fall. That's how minds rot. That's how souls die, not from war or poverty, but from trust misplaced. Let's shift into real life. Think about someone you trust deeply. Now ask, why do I trust them? Is it habit? History? Emotion? Have they earned that trust through consistency, integrity, truth? Or have you simply given it because it was easier than confronting doubt? Trust should be earned daily, not assumed. Trust is not a gift. It's a currency. And you must be a ruthless investor. Would you hand your savings to a stranger because they smiled at you? Then why hand your energy, your beliefs, your future to people who haven't proven worthy? Let's hit the deeper philosophical paradox. Trust is essential for connection, but deadly without discernment. The Greek philosopher Socrates believed in relentless, the method of questioning to expose truth. And he didn't trust the surface. He interrogated it. And through that, he found clarity. That's your power. Trust, but verify. Love, but observe. Engage, but guard your mind. This is not cynicism. It's wisdom. Cynics trust no one and die alone. Fools trust everyone and die used. The wise trust selectively and live free. So here's the challenge: audit your trust. Who has it? Why? What have they done to earn it, not once, but repeatedly? Where has your trust led you astray? And most of all, do you trust yourself? Because until you do, every other trust is a risk. And in a world full of masks, illusion, manipulation, that risk can cost you everything. Why radical self-trust is your only protection in a world of illusions and manipulators. Let's now arrive at the deepest insight, the one that rewires how you see the world and your place in it. The only trust that is truly safe, the only trust that can't be used against you, is trust in yourself. Not ego, not delusion, but a grounded, ruthless, tested faith in your own awareness. Trusting people becomes dangerous not because trust itself is toxic, but because most people replace self-trust with external trust. They make others the compass of their decisions, their sense of right and wrong, their feelings of worth. And when that compass gets broken, as it inevitably will, they are left lost. The fortress within the unshakable inner clarity that cannot be corrupted is what ancient philosophers, spiritual teachers, and modern thinkers alike have pointed to as the key to freedom. Because when you know how to think for yourself, when you are loyal to your own perception of truth, no one can own you. Think of all the times you silenced your intuition because someone you trusted told you not to worry, told you it wasn't a big deal, told you you were overreacting. Now ask yourself, how did that end? Did ignoring your gut lead to peace? Or did it lead to regret, disillusionment, betrayal? The truth is, most of us don't lack wisdom. We lack courage. The courage to believe what we see, to feel what we feel, to act on our internal knowing, especially when it conflicts with the image of someone we trust. This is where dangerous people win. They rely on your hesitation, your fear of confrontation, your willingness to betray yourself to maintain the illusion of harmony. But when you trust yourself fully, when you decide that your perception, your boundaries, your instincts are real, that's when the manipulation ends. Not because they change, but because you do. There's a powerful metaphor in ancient Stoic philosophy: the mind as a citadel, a fortress that cannot be stormed from the outside. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This is more than just resilience. It's the foundation of sovereignty. When you place trust in others without this inner fortress, you are exposed. You are vulnerable to flattery, to pressure, to emotional blackmail. But when your mind is fortified, trust becomes a choice, not a compulsion. You can engage with people, even love them, without giving them the keys to your sanity. That's the kind of power that makes you dangerous in the best way. Dangerous to liars, dangerous to manipulators, dangerous to any system or person who thrives on dependency and fear. Let's go even deeper. What makes self-trust so rare is that it demands responsibility. When you trust yourself, you can no longer blame others for your mistakes, your regrets, your failures. You can't hide behind "I trusted them." No, you chose. You ignored the signs. You stayed silent. And that brutal honesty, it hurts, but it also liberates. Because once you own your choices, you also own your power to choose differently. That's what dangerous people fear, not your rage, but your clarity. Your refusal to give your energy, your loyalty, your attention to anything that doesn't serve your growth. And when you reach that point, trust becomes something sacred, selective, and earned. So what does trust look like in its highest form? It's not blind, it's watchful. It's not desperate, it's discerning. It doesn't fear loss, because it knows that losing what is false is just making space for what is true. In this way, trust is no longer about them. It's about you, your values, your alignment, your peace. And from that foundation, you can engage with the world without being consumed by it. You can be kind without being exploited, giving without being emptied, loving without being enslaved. That's the ultimate balance, and it begins when you build the fortress within. Let me leave you with a final reflection. In a world that constantly tells you to trust authority, trust systems, trust narratives, ask yourself, what do I actually know? What have I experienced directly? Where is my truth coming from? Because ancient wisdom doesn't ask you to trust, but it asks you to see, to test, to observe, to learn through life, not through belief. Trust, then, becomes not a default, but a reward, something given to those who have proven themselves not just through words, but through actions, consistency, and integrity. And even then, your highest loyalty remains to yourself, to your conscience, to your path. That's how you stay free. That's how you stay untouchable. That's how you live not as a pawn in someone else's game, but as the sovereign author of your own existence.